So, exactly what happened. Cold, hard fact now. I've seen him. You hit him over the head. Okay? And what did you hit him over the head with? Yes.
This is a case that has really touched so many because of the sheer brutality of the torture and abuse of this young boy by the two people who should have been taking care of him.
The repeated beatings, burning, starving, binding, shooting Gabriel with BBs that were embedded in different parts of his body, knocking his teeth out with a bat, locking him in a dark cabinet while he's bound, and starving this poor child. It is unimaginable.
Today, we're diving into a case that rattled not just a town, not just a state, but the entire country. This is the tragic story of Gabriel Fernandez, a sweet 8-year-old boy who suffered unimaginable abuse at the hands of the people who should have protected him most: his own mother, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Isauro Aguirre. This is Gabriel. Look at that face, just 8 years old, already experiencing things no child should ever have to. And today, we're going to look at how the system meant to protect Gabriel failed him so utterly and completely. So, Gabriel Fernandez was born on February 20th, 2005 in California. From the get-go, his life wasn't exactly simple. His mom, Pearl, wasn't involved much. Drugs, crime, she was in and out of his life. Little Gabriel was mostly raised by his grandparents, and he even spent some time living with his uncle. Now, by all accounts, those were the good years. He was loved, cared for, and safe. But in 2012, things took a dark turn. His mom, Pearl Fernandez, decided she wanted him back. Now, she'd been in and out of his life, but she somehow convinced authorities that she was fit to care for him. And just like that, he was taken from a safe, loving home and placed back with his mother and her boyfriend, Isauro Aguirre. All right, here's where things go from bad to absolutely horrific. Pearl and Isauro didn't just neglect Gabriel, they made his life a living hell. And I'm not using that term lightly. We're talking about a systematic campaign of abuse, torture, and humiliation. They starved him, beat him, and forced him to eat the most unimaginable things. And the worst part? They seemed to enjoy it. Teachers, neighbors, even family members. They'd all noticed something was very wrong. Teachers saw Gabriel's bruises, cuts, and burns. And when they asked him, Gabriel told them. He said his mom and her boyfriend were hurting him.
Grader, Gabriel's teacher, reads a note she found hidden in the 8-year-old's desk a few days after she learned of his brutal death.
I love you, Mom, and Gabriel is a good boy.
Jennifer Garcia said Gabriel confided in her early on in the school year, telling her he was beaten at home. Garcia immediately reported this to the Department of Children and Family Services.
She's like, well, sometimes my mom makes me bleed. And I said, well, where do you bleed? And he said, well, on my bottom. Because she hits me with a belt. And he's like, you know that part with the metal on it? He's like, that part.
Over the next few months, Garcia said she saw repeated bruises, burns, wounds, and other injuries on the boy, and said in at least one instance, Gabriel came to school wearing girls' clothes.
But every time the teachers or family members reported it to authorities, nothing happened. Reports were filed, social workers visited, but then they left without intervening. By now, the Department of Children and Family Services, or DCFS, had received multiple calls about Gabriel's case. Social workers, law enforcement, teachers, they were all saying the same thing. This kid needs help. And yet, somehow, the system, the one meant to protect children, failed him. This wasn't just a missed opportunity. This was negligence on a catastrophic scale. They had every chance to intervene, every opportunity to get Gabriel out of that house. And yet, despite clear signs of abuse, they left him there. Gabriel was living in what can only be described as a house of horrors. And then, we get to the night of May 22nd, 2013. Pearl and Isauro had apparently been having a rough night, and in their twisted minds, Gabriel was their outlet. They beat him, and this time they didn't stop. They hit him so badly that he stopped breathing. Pearl called 911, putting on this whole concerned mother's act, claiming Gabriel had fallen.
911 emergency.
Yes, I would like to, my son is not breathing.
Your son is what?
He's not breathing.
Hold on 1 second. I'm going to transfer you over to the fire department. Don't hang up.
My son is 8 years old.
It's your son, okay. And he's not breathing?
No.
Is he having a seizure?
No, he was wrestling with my other son, and I came in and he just was unconscious.
Okay, do you have the paramedics on the way right now? Are you right there with him?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I'm just doing the compulsions on the chest right now.
Okay, you need to breathe for him. If he's not breathing, you need to do 2 breaths and 30 compressions. Just need you to keep doing that until the paramedics come, okay? They're on their way. They're coming as fast as they can.
But when emergency responders arrived, they found a child who'd suffered injuries so brutal, so extensive, that they knew this wasn't an accident. Gabriel had broken ribs, a fractured skull, BB gun wounds and bruises covering his tiny body. He was immediately rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. 2 days later, Gabriel was taken off life support. Gabriel Fernandez and Isauro Aguirre were both arrested and charged with first-degree murder. And during the trials, more and more details of the horrific abuse came out, each one more stomach-turning than the last.
The prosecution played for the court the recorded interviews of defendant Isauro Aguirre, also known as Tony, conducted by sheriff's detectives in the hours after Gabriel was rushed to the hospital.
So, exactly what happened. Cold hard fact now. I've seen him. You hit him over the head. Okay? And what did she hit him over the head with? Your fist. How many times? Probably 10 times. Maybe 10 times with your fist to the head.
In the recordings, Aguirre describes how Gabriel made him mad, saying the 8-year-old told his mother Pearl that she should leave Aguirre. In the recordings, Aguirre states that he lost control, even admitting that he hit Gabriel harder than he has ever hit anyone before.
So you pick it back up and you hit him again, okay? How many times did you do that when you had to knock him down and pick him up? 4 or 5 times. 4 or 5 times.
Aguirre admits at one point losing count. In their cross-examination, the defense played the video recording of Aguirre's interview with detectives. Aguirre describes trying to revive the 8-year-old when he stopped breathing.
When I took him out, I figured that, bubbles or air bubbles in his lungs. So I told her, keep the phone so I could find out more, and she did. So I have a speaker. Tell me to do the conversions or the CPR.
Aguirre, whose defense tried to argue he was intellectually disabled and didn't intend to kill Gabriel, was found guilty of first-degree murder with a special circumstance of torture. The jury didn't buy it, and honestly, neither do I. He was sentenced to death. As for Pearl, she took a plea deal, admitting to the murder to avoid the death penalty. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Both are now exactly where they belong.
The repeated beatings, burning, starving, binding, shooting Gabriel with BBs that were embedded in different parts of his body, knocking his teeth out with a bat, locking him in a dark cabinet while he's bound, and starving this poor child. It is unimaginable the pain that this child probably endured. And from what I heard, Gabriel was a kind, loving individual who just wanted to be loved. I can only wish, I really do, that you both, in the middle of the night, you wake up and you think of the injuries that you subjected this poor young man, and that it tortures you.
Aguirre was found guilty by a jury. They recommended the death penalty. It's rare in California. The last execution here was 11 years ago. Now, during the trial, prosecutors have called Aguirre an evil man who liked torturing Gabriel. They said, They thought that he believed he was gay. Gabriel Fernandez did strike a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. Today, both sat stone-faced. At one point, she spoke. She said she wished she could have saved her son. And then she criticized extended family who've come forward to honor him, saying they didn't know him. Gabriel's first grade teacher also spoke today. She saw signs of abuse, went to authorities trying to get help.
For the last 5 years, Gabriel has been number 28 in my classroom. I don't assign number 28 to another student because I feel it is only his number now. And it's a way for me to honor him in my classroom. It almost makes it like he's still here. I find comfort in believing he is now at peace.
Today, Gabriel's biological father, who is serving time for robbery and other charges, was brought into the courtroom, says he feels guilty. He said that in the past for not being there for his son. He asked to watch the sentencing in his cell.
But sadly, it's justice that came far too late for Gabriel. But the story doesn't end there. You see, it wasn't just Pearl and Isauro on trial. It was also the system.
In a rare move, 4 social workers were charged today in an extreme case of child abuse where an 8-year-old boy died.
CBS 2's Randy Page tells us what they are accused of doing.
I have a message for the 4 social workers. You brought this upon yourself. Your conviction will be our greatest victory.
The cousin of Gabriel Fernandez is reacting to the district attorney's decision to charge 4 social workers with child abuse and falsifying public records in connection with the 8-year-old's torture and death in 2012. Stephanie Rodriguez, Patricia Clement, Kevin Baum, and Gregory Merritt were in court today for their arraignment on the felony charges. Jackie Lacey says the 4 social workers should also be held criminally responsible for allowing the boy to remain in the abusive home after multiple allegations of abuse were reported to county authorities. LA County's Director of Children and Family Services says the 4 social workers did not follow the proper protocols in Gabriel's case.
The DCFS social workers involved in Gabriel's case, Rodriguez, Clement, Baum, and Merritt, were charged with felony child abuse and falsifying public records. But get this, a judge later dismissed these charges.
The torture case of Gabriel Fernandez was one of the most gut-wrenching cases ever tried in LA County. And today, a judge dismissed the charges against 4 social workers who were accused of failing to protect the 8-year-old. Eyewitness News reporter Rob Hayes is in downtown LA with more. Rob.
Yeah, Philip, those 4 DCFS workers all appeared in court today to hear the judge throw out those charges. They were facing prison sentences, accused of child abuse and falsifying records in the Gabriel Fernandez case. Boyfriend was sentenced to death. Gabriel's mother, Pearl Fernandez, was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But prosecutors also went after the social workers in that case, saying they failed to take the appropriate steps to protect Gabriel and then falsified documents related to the case. An appellate court in January ruled the charges against Stephanie Rodriguez, Patricia Clement, Kevin Baum, and Gregory Merritt, all employees of LA County's Department of Children and Family Services, should have been dismissed. So the case was sent back down to the trial court today, and Judge George Lamelli did just that.
Pursuant to the Court of Appeals directive, the motions to dismiss are hereby granted, and the information is hereby set aside.
But we are very grateful for the court's decision in light of the fact that the court has found that they are all factually innocent, including my client.
Ruling that they couldn't be held criminally liable. Unbelievable, right? The very people who ignored every single warning, who failed to get Gabriel out of that house, walked free. Public outrage was through the roof, and reforms were promised. But you have to wonder, is that enough? Could anything really make up for what happened to Gabriel? Gabriel Fernandez's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the flaws in our child welfare system, a system meant to protect, but in his case, one that tragically failed. His case has sparked changes, pushed for more accountability, and brought attention to the need for reform, but it's a small comfort. Remember this face, remember his name, because as awful as his story is, as hard as it is to hear, we need to keep it in mind, because Gabriel deserved better, and so do so many other kids out there who might still be in danger. Let's hope that by remembering Gabriel, we can finally get things right for others who need it.